Timothy had spent 7 straight days living as a vagrant on this backwater planet, and the universe had rewarded him with absolutely nothing interesting. Not a single bar fight, not a single robbery to interrupt, not even a malfunctioning cargo loader dropping from the sky. Just dust, heat, and the constant itch of grime under his collar, the exact sensation he never missed from his old life. The alien marketplace roared around him, a riot of sound and color. Stalls draped in shimmering fabrics, vendors shouting in languages that bent the air, hovering trays of sizzling food drifting past on anti-grav lifts. Neon banners flickered in the smoky haze above the crowd. Even for someone like him, someone who had seen more of the galaxy than he cared to count, the place was a sensory assault. He scratched his beard, overgrown on purpose, chaotic by nature, and muttered, "Next time I disguise myself, I'm coming as a mime. At least then I'd have an excuse not to talk to anyone." A vendor glanced over, wrinkling his reptilian nose at Timothy's appearance. Perfect. The disguise was working, and then finally chaos. A hush rippled through the plaza. Conversations faltered. A cluster of armored mercenaries shoved their way into view, forcing the crowd aside. At their center stood a woman with sapphire blue skin, pink hair cascading like a waterfall, and a small girl clinging to her side. Even cornered, the woman carried herself with a poised, regal stillness that didn't belong in a place like this. Timothy's interest sharpened instantly. The mercenary leader, a hulking brute with writhing tentacles instead of arms, stepped forward. "Princess Adelina," he growled, "the Empire wants you alive, don't resist." Her voice cut through the air like a blade. "I would rather die than return." Timothy grinned, drama at last. He sauntered toward them with an exaggerated stumble, as though he'd spent the morning drinking something cheap and regrettable. "Hey ye, fellas," he called out lazily. "Mind if I join the party? I bet I could take all of you down in 3 seconds. Hands only." The mercenaries burst into laughter. Even Adelina stared at him like he was a hallucination. Timothy began counting down. 3, 2, 1. He moved. To the untrained eye, it was a blur, too fast, too fluid, too precise. A strike to the throat, an elbow to the jaw, a twist that sent a mercenary crashing through a vendor's stall. Bodies dropped in perfect rhythm. The air cracked with impact after impact. Exactly 3 seconds later, every mercenary lay sprawled across the ground, groaning or unconscious. Timothy dusted his hands off, mildly disappointed. Should have done it blindfolded." Adelina stared at him, chest rising and falling with adrenaline. "What are you?" "Hungry," he said, grabbing 2 spiky fruits from a stunned vendor and taking a bite. His face twisted. "And making terrible snack choices." He turned to leave, but her hand shot out, gripping his sleeve with desperate resolve. "Please," Adelina said. Up close, he saw the fear beneath her regal mask. "The Empire will keep coming. I need your help. My daughter needs your help." "I can offer myself if you'll." Timothy burst into laughter so loud the vendor flinched. "A concubine? That's your negotiation opener." He wiped a tear. "Blue, you're gorgeous, but I don't do easy bargains. If I wanted uncomplicated companionship, I'd join a monastery." Before she could answer, alarms blared overhead. Imperial dropships thundered through the clouds. Troopers poured into the plaza, white armor gleaming under neon lights. "Perfect timing," Timothy said cheerfully. "New challenge, take down all incoming troops without lifting my feet from this spot." Adelina recoiled. "You're insane." "Probably," he agreed. "Stand back." Blaster fire erupted. Timothy's upper body became a whirlwind, dodging, striking, redirecting shots with the edge of his hand. Laser bolts ricocheted off metal signs and crashed into troopers. Smoke filled the air. The crowd fled in panic. And through it all, his boots never shifted an inch. The little girl, Mia, peeked from behind her mother, eyes wide with awe. "Mommy, he's like a superhero." Adelina swallowed hard. "I'm not sure that's the right word." When the last trooper dropped, the plaza fell eerily silent except for the crackle of burning stalls. Timothy turned to Adelina with that same reckless grin. "So, Blue, you coming with me, or staying to get captured?" She hesitated, looked down at Mia, at the smoking ruins around them, at the man who had just defied an entire battalion with one self-imposed handicap. The spaceport was a storm of panic and metal. Klaxons wailed from every direction, red emergency lights painting the hangars in frantic pulses. Civilians sprinted for cover, ships scrambled for takeoff, and Imperial dropships thundered down from the sky like falling stars. Adelina clutched her daughter tightly as Timothy moved ahead with an almost irritatingly casual stride, weaving through chaos like he was strolling through a garden. "They've sealed all exits," she said breathlessly. "We won't make it out." "Incorrect," Timothy replied. "We won't make it out easily, huge difference." He pointed toward a sleek, impossibly polished yacht docked at the far end of the bay, its hull gleaming gold and white under the flashing lights. "That one," he said. "I like how obnoxiously expensive it looks." "That ship belongs to a high-ranking imperial noble," Adelina hissed. Timothy shrugged. "Then they clearly don't deserve it." A squad of armored troopers rounded the corner, weapons raised. Timothy didn't even slow down. "New rules," he announced. "Clear a path while pretending I'm late for a dentist appointment." "What does that even?" He hurried forward with exaggerated panic, hands flying in comedic gestures as if explaining tooth pain. Troopers stared in confusion just long enough for him to dismantle the entire squad with 3 sharp motions and a kick that sent a helmet skittering across the floor. He dusted his hands. "Ow, my imaginary molar feels so much better." Adelina stared at him. "This cannot be a real person." "Oh, I agree," he said brightly. "I'm much more fun." They reached the yacht. Timothy slapped the control panel. It sparked and hissed before clicking open with a reluctant chirp. "See," he said, "it likes me." They hurried up the ramp. Inside, the ship was a masterpiece. Polished obsidian floors, hollow chandeliers, velvet seats, control consoles that hummed with wealth. Mia let out a gasp of wonder. "Do not touch anything," Adelina instructed, but the little girl was already running her fingers along the glowing edges of a console. Timothy slid into the pilot's seat, stretching his legs like he owned the place. "Seatbelts, princesses. This is going to be, well, not safe." The engines ignited with a roar that shook the hangar. Imperial troops swarmed into the bay. "Fire at will," a commander shouted. "Well," Timothy said, flipping a row of switches, "I'm Timothy, but we can get fired at too." The yacht blasted out of the hangar like a projectile. Blaster fire streaked past their viewport, the sky lighting up with streaks of red. Adelina grabbed the armrest so hard she nearly cracked it. "Keep your head down," Timothy warned, "unless you want a free haircut by laser." The blockade loomed above the planet, a formation of cruisers arranged like a metal web, cannons glowing with lethal promise. "They'll vaporize us," Adelina whispered. "Only if they hit us. Bad news for them, I'm very unhittable." He pushed the throttle to maximum. The yacht screamed as it ascended. Timothy's eyes sparkled. "Ooh, I'm feeling poetic. Time for haikus." "No, lasers dance around. We zig while they try to zag." "Oops, your ship goes boom." A cruiser fired. Timothy jerked the controls, sending them spiraling so close they skimmed the hull, scraping paint off both ships. "You're insane," Adelina shouted. "Thank you," he said sweetly. "Not often I get compliments during combat." The sky erupted with fire as they dodged volley after volley. Mia shrieked with glee, clapping each time they narrowly avoided death. Timothy's hands moved with impossible precision, tapping, flipping, twisting controls faster than thought. He wove the yacht through the blockade like threading a needle through a hurricane. "Attention, Imperial blockade," Timothy said into the comm system. "Your formation is cute, really, adorable, 10 out of 10. But..." He jerked the ship downward. A missile slammed into a cruiser, causing a cascade of friendly fire. "You might want to work on communication." They broke through the final line, skimming past a cruiser's bow so closely the yacht's shields sparked blue. Adelina held her daughter tight, breath ragged. "Hyperdrive now." Timothy grabbed the lever with theatrical flair. "Roses are red. Violets are blue. Let's leave our problems in hyperspace stew." He yanked, stars stretched into white lines. The roar became a hum, and the universe bent into the deep, swirling blue of hyperspace. Silence. Adelina slumped back, trembling. Mia was practically vibrating with excitement. Timothy leaned back, feet up, completely relaxed. "See. Easy, moderate, mildly spicy." Adelina exhaled shakily. "You terrify me." "That's fair," he said. "Most people aren't built for my level of charm." She looked at him for a long moment. Not at the chaos. Hyperspace shimmered outside the viewport like a river made of starlight. Endless, fluid, impossible. Inside the stolen yacht, however, silence hung like a fragile thread. Adelina sat stiffly in the co-pilot's seat, her daughter asleep against her shoulder, while Timothy lounged sideways in the pilot's chair, half reclined, half smirking, spinning in lazy circles with one boot idly tapping the console. "So," he drawled, "what's our next destination? Preferably somewhere loud, inhospitable, or featuring explosive wildlife." Adelina gave him a flat stare. I would prefer somewhere we're not immediately hunted. That's boring, he said. Effective, sure, but boring. She exhaled sharply. Timothy, we can't keep running forever. The Empire isn't just chasing us, they're deploying fleets. They'll track us across systems. He gave her a crooked smile. Good. I'd hate for them to give up. It would hurt my feelings. She rubbed her forehead in disbelief. Are you ever serious? Timothy didn't answer right away. His gaze drifted to the swirling blue outside, the endless ribbon of lights. Something flickered behind his eyes, something momentary, something hollow. But then hyperspace shuddered. Hard. The ship lurched violently, alarms shrieking to life. Mia jolted awake with a small cry. No, 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 Adelina whispered, holding her daughter close. We weren't scheduled to drop out of hyperspace. We weren't, Timothy agreed, pushing upright. Outside, the blue tunnel fractured like glass. Reality slammed back into place with a burst of static as the ship was forcibly yanked into normal space. On the other side waited an Imperial cruiser, then another, then 9 more. A full interception ring. Adelina's blood ran cold. They found us. Timothy cracked his neck. Perfect, challenge accepted. Before she could argue, he placed his right hand firmly behind his back. Don't, she warned. New rule, destroy the fleet using only my left hand. Timothy, it's important to maintain discipline, he said solemnly, and then slammed the throttle. The ship surged forward, engines screaming. Laser fire erupted instantly, streaking the void with light. The yacht rolled, twisted, and spun violently, but every movement was deliberate, precise. Timothy's left hand danced across controls with supernatural reflexes. They blasted between 2 cruisers so close the hull scraped sparks along both sides. Timothy, you're going to... Hush, he said, Daddy-S working. He flipped a single switch. One, a tiny one Adelina had never even noticed. The yacht's stabilizers pulsed once, and suddenly the ship pivoted end over end, slipping between a swarm of TIE fighters as though falling through water. Mia squealed with terrified delight. Another cruiser fired a plasma beam. Timothy tilted the ship by exactly 2 degrees. The beam grazed their shields and slammed into a neighboring destroyer, igniting a chain reaction of catastrophic feedback explosions. Adelina stared, disbelief turning to something close to awe. You're doing this with one hand. Timothy winked. Imagine what I can do on a date night. She sputtered, face flushing purple. He pulled the ship into a corkscrew dive. The yacht zipped between 2 destroyers, then shot upward through the dorsal hangar of a carrier, slicing through docking clamps and fuel lines. A beat later, the entire hangar ignited behind them in a fireball the size of a city. That's 3 down, he said casually. This is impossible. That's my specialty. More fighters converged. Timothy hummed to himself, off-key, cheerful, maddeningly calm. He tapped the comm. Attention Imperial Fleet, please hold still. I'm trying to make this look artistic. He then fired a single shot, just one. It struck a munitions storage bay on the smallest cruiser. The resulting explosion rippled outward, triggering detonations across its entire flank. Chunks of burning hull ripped free and slammed into the destroyer beside it, setting off a secondary explosion. 2 ships died in silence, swallowed in blossoms of flame. Timothy lowered his hand with a satisfied sigh. Left-handed poetry in motion. Adelina couldn't speak. She couldn't even breathe properly. He had dismantled half a fleet with the bored grace of someone solving a puzzle he'd already completed. Another cruiser locked onto them. Timothy grinned. Oh ho, they're getting creative, I like it. He pulled back hard on the controls, sending them into a vertical climb. The cruiser fired, missiles streaking toward them in a deadly swarm. I can't watch, Adelina whispered. Then don't, Timothy said brightly. Just trust me. He cut the engines. The ship dropped, free-falling toward the swarm. Adelina screamed. Timothy angled the nose sharply, skimming past the missiles so closely she could make out the serial numbers. The missiles corrected course and slammed into the cruiser's bridge. A bloom of fire lit the void. Timothy reignited the engines and arced them upward into the clear. Only one cruiser remained. It fired. He didn't dodge. Adelina clutched Mia, hard in her throat, until the beam flickered, warped, and detonated inside the cruiser's own cannon. Timothy had timed it perfectly, allowing the ship's faulty coolant cycle to backfire under stress. The final cruiser split apart in a silent cascade of molten metal. Silence returned to the cockpit. Adelina stared at him, breath shaking. You destroyed an entire fleet alone. Correction, he said modestly, with one hand. She stared at him, through him. For a moment she forgot the fear, the running, the empire. She saw a man who joked his way through death, who pushed himself into impossible challenges not because he wanted glory, but because something inside him demanded it. Something broken, something lonely. Before she could speak, Mia tugged on her sleeve. "Mommy, is he magic?" Timothy grinned softly. "Nah, magic's easier." Adelina looked at him differently now. Less like a reckless lunatic, more like a days blurred together as their stolen yacht slipped through the galaxy like a nervous heartbeat. Every world they touched felt temporary, a half-breath before the next pursuit. But through it all, Timothy remained exactly the same, relaxed, chaotic, impossible. Adelina found that both infuriating and strangely grounding. On a swamp world thick with bioluminescent fog, Imperial troops cornered them between fungus towers that glowed an eerie green. Timothy simply announced, "New challenge, defeat them while hopping on one foot," and proceeded to do exactly that, bouncing through blaster fire while reciting limericks so absurd even Mia giggled between explosions. On a trading station, he disabled an entire Star Destroyer's navigation system without touching a single control panel, just waving his arms in bizarre, rhythmic motions that looked like interpretive dance. The destroyer spun in circles for 10 minutes before slamming gently into a cargo barge. Timothy bowed like a performer taking a final curtain call. During a high-speed chase through an asteroid field, he piloted using only his elbows, juggling spiky fruits with his knees. Adelina screamed, Mia cheered, Timothy winked. Each time Adelina swore she'd reached her limit. Each time she was wrong. But in rare moments when danger paused long enough to breathe, she noticed something else. How Mia had taken to him completely, how the child followed him with shining eyes, how she laughed again after months of fear. And how Timothy softened just slightly whenever Mia took his hand. That softness unnerved Adelina more than all the chaos. One night, on a barren moon painted silver by its twin suns, they made camp outside the ship. Just a small fire, the low hum of cooling engines, and a sky filled with too many stars. Mia slept curled in blankets, tiny hands tucked under her cheek. Adelina watched her daughter for a long moment. Then she lowered herself onto a crate across from Timothy, who poked at the fire with a stick, unusually quiet. "Why do you do it?" she asked finally. "All these challenges, the reckless stunts, the jokes when death is inches away. What are you running from?" Timothy didn't look up immediately. The firelight flickered across his face, revealing lines she hadn't noticed before, tired ones, older ones. "When you're unbeatable," he said softly, "life loses its flavor." Adelina blinked. She'd expected bravado, not this. He continued, voice lower. "When I was young, I was nobody, weak, overlooked. Watched everything I cared about get crushed because I couldn't protect it. I swore I'd never feel powerless again." His fist closed around the stick, knuckles whitening. "So I chased strength, power, knowledge, anything to make sure nothing could ever hurt me or the people I cared about." He gave a humorless laugh. "Turns out if you chase power long enough, you forget how to feel the things worth protecting." Adelina felt something shift inside her chest. "Timothy." He finally met her eyes. "Do you know what it's like?" he murmured. "To be able to destroy a fleet with one hand but not feel fear, not feel joy, not feel anything." The pain behind the words struck her harder than any explosion. Yes, she did know. In her own way, power protects, he said. But it also empties. I kept pushing myself because I needed to feel alive, needed something, anything that could reach me. He looked at the fire again as though searching for meaning in the flames. "And now," Adelina asked gently, he hesitated just for a heartbeat. "Now, there are moments when I think I'm starting to feel something again." Her breath caught, because of Mia. Timothy's lips quirked upward, "Because of both of you." The air tightened between them, soft, fragile, intimate. The kind of silence that felt like the space between two heartbeats waiting to close. But then the ground trembled faintly beneath their feet. Adelina's eyes widened. What was that? Timothy sighed, standing and brushing off his hands. "Probably trouble." "Trouble follows you," she muttered. "Correction," he said, offering a hand to pull her up. "Trouble and I have a mutual attraction." She took his hand. Another tremor rolled through the dust. Timothy shifted, listening intently. His posture changed, loose casualness replaced by something sharp, aware, preternaturally focused. "Get Mia," he said quietly. Adelina rushed to her daughter, lifting the sleepy girl into her arms. "What's happening?" "Visitors," Timothy murmured. A piercing beam cut through the night sky. A dropship descended, engines roaring, sand swirling violently around them. Adelina froze. No, how did they find us again?" Timothy gave her a crooked smile. I might have waved at a patrol ship earlier. You what? The dropship landed with force, ramp slamming open. Dozens of Imperial troopers poured out. Timothy cracked his knuckles. Okay, new challenge, finish this fight without making Mia cry. Mia rubbed her eyes, looking up sleepily at him. You can do it, she whispered. Something fierce and protective flashed across his face, something rower than she had ever seen in him. The troopers aimed. Timothy stepped forward, and the night erupted. Blaster bolts carved streaks of light through the air. Timothy blurred, moving so fast Adelina could only track him by the shockwaves he left behind. He struck with precision, non-lethal this time, she realized, for Mia's sake. Troopers hit the ground unconscious, one after another, forming a widening circle of bodies around him. Mia watched with sleepy fascination. Mommy, he's like a big, loud guardian. Adelina's throat tightened. Yes, he is. Within seconds, the battlefield fell silent. Troopers lay scattered across the dust, groaning. Timothy didn't even look winded. He turned back to them, expression softer than the fight should have allowed. See, he said, no tears. Mia clapped sleepily. Adelina exhaled shakily. Relief washed over her like a slow tide, but underneath it pulsed something deeper, something dangerous, something she wasn't ready to name. Timothy walked toward them, firelight flickering behind him, stars stretching endlessly above. Let's get out of here, he said gently. This moon isn't as peaceful as advertised. As she followed him back into the ship, Adelina couldn't shake the realization that terrified her more than any Imperial fleet. She was starting to trust him, maybe even need him. And that, she knew, was a far more dangerous. The next days unfolded like a fevered dream, fragmented moments stitched together by danger, exhaustion, and the strange, growing connection none of them dared address aloud. Each new world brought a new threat. Each narrow escape brought a new challenge Timothy invented on the spot. And each moment between those escapes tightened the invisible threads binding them together. They fled across sand-scarred dunes under 3 suns. They hid in the metallic forests of Draction 4, where the leaves chimed like distant bells. They spent one long night drifting above a crimson gas giant, its storms swirling beneath them like sleeping beasts. Through all of it, Mia clung to Timothy like he was both a shield and a playground. And Timothy, who had once claimed he couldn't feel anything at all, started looking at the child with something dangerously close to tenderness. Adelina saw it, felt it, and it both warmed her and frightened her. One evening, after they'd outrun an Imperial scouting wing in a battered canyon world, Timothy set the ship to autopilot and sprawled across the floor of the common room, staring at the ceiling as Mia used him as a climbing structure. Higher, Mia demanded, sitting on his stomach. Timothy obligingly levitated her a few inches with a flick of his fingers. Adelina almost dropped the datapad she was holding. Timothy. What? He asked innocently. It's gentle hovering, very safe, mostly safe, moderately safe. Mia giggled as he twirled her in a slow spin, tiny feet kicking at the air. When he lowered her back down, she curled against him, yawning. Timothy's expression softened in a way Adelina had never seen before, like someone discovering an emotion they'd only read about. He brushed a strand of pink hair away from Mia's forehead. Adelina's heart clenched unexpectedly. She cleared her throat, forcing control back into her voice. I'll put her to bed. Timothy helped lift Mia gently and handed her over. Their fingers brushed. Heat darted up Adelina's arm, sharp, unwelcome, and impossible to ignore. She pulled away too quickly. Timothy watched her go, eyes shadowed with something she couldn't name. Later, when Mia was asleep, Adelina returned to the cockpit. Stars drifted past in a slow, hypnotic procession. Timothy leaned back in the pilot's chair, one leg propped arrogantly across the console, eyes half closed in the soft glow of instrument lights. You avoid me when she's asleep, he said without looking at her. Adelina stiffened. I do not. You do, he repeated, turning his head just enough to meet her gaze. Because talking to me without a child between us is dangerous. Her breath hitched. Dangerous how? His gaze held hers, steady, piercing, uncharacteristically serious. Because you don't know what you want from me. She swallowed hard. You are impossible. Timothy smiled, but there was no mockery in it. You're not wrong. Silence stretched between them, humming with tension. He drummed his fingers on the console. We can't keep drifting like this. Eventually, the Empire is going to send something bigger, smarter, or lucky. Adelina nodded, forcing herself to focus. We need a plan, a real one. Thought you'd never ask, he said, sitting up. Option A, we find a remote world and hide forever. Downsides, boring. No. Option B, we break into an Imperial black site, steal the registry that tracks wanted fugitives, and erase you too. Downsides, incredibly dangerous. His eyes sparkled. And fun. No. Option C, we take the fight to them. Adelina blinked. What does that mean? He pushed a holomap toward her. The Empire has one weakness: bureaucracy. The location of every shipyard, every intelligence hub, every command relay, it's all funneled through a single central node. Adelina's blood chilled. The Imperial Nexus. Timothy grinned. Exactly. That's suicide. Only if done badly. And how, she demanded, would we do it well? Timothy leaned in, lowering his voice as though sharing a delightful secret. We slip inside, disable their communication network, wipe every trace of your existence, and maybe, he shrugged, blow up a cruiser or two for dramatic effect. Adelina stared at him. You're serious? Very. I like finishing what others start, and the Empire started this. She shook her head. It's too dangerous. Everything we've done has been too dangerous, he countered. But this is the first option that actually ends the chase. Adelina closed her eyes. She could feel the enormity of what he was proposing. A single strike. A single target. If they succeeded, she and Mia could finally breathe again. She opened her eyes. What's your real reason, Timothy? For what? For wanting to do this. Not the jokes, not the challenges, you. He stared at her for a long moment, unreadable. Then softly. Because I'm tired of watching you run. Her breath caught. Timothy. And he added with a crooked smile. Because Mia thinks I'm invincible. Can't disappoint the kid. Adelina exhaled shakily. Something inside her cracked, dangerous, fragile, impossible to ignore. Fine, she whispered. We do it your way. His grin widened like a sunrise. Oh, princess, you have no idea how fun this is going to be. Before she could respond, the proximity alarms shrieked. Timothy's expression sharpened instantly. Well, that was fast. The dreadnought filled the entire viewport, an impossible wall of black metal bristling with cannons, like a slumbering titan waking from a century-long rage. Its engines glowed a venomous red. Its shields crackled with storm-like fury. Even at a distance, Adelina felt the vibration of its power through her bones. Timothy grinned like he'd just been handed a birthday present wrapped in explosives. Oh, this is gorgeous, he murmured. Look at the symmetry. Look at the weapon's layout. I almost don't want to break it, almost. Timothy, Adelina snapped, gripping the console. We cannot fight a dreadnought. He leaned forward, eyes gleaming with mad brilliance. Who said anything about fighting? I'm thinking improvisational choreography. The dreadnought fired, a beam of condensed plasma carved across space, narrowly missing them. The shockwave sent the yacht rolling violently. Adelina's stomach lurched. Mia whimpered in her sleep. Timothy steadied the ship with one hand, tilting it into a corkscrew dive. All right, no more warm-up. Time for the main performance. Another blast fired, this one perfectly aimed. Timothy cut the engines. The ship dropped like a stone. The plasma beam grazed their hull, sizzling past where they had been a half-second earlier. You're going to kill us, Adelina shouted. Maybe, he shouted back, but only if I mess up, which I don't plan on today. The yacht plunged toward the dreadnought's hull. Alarms screamed, shields crackled. The dreadnought shifted firing angles, trying to track them. Timothy accelerated. Timothy. We're threading a needle the size of a building, he said. Very delicate. Very dangerous, very fun. They shot toward the dreadnought's dorsal hangar, an armored trench lined with gun ports. Adelina's heart slammed against her ribs. There's no way through. There is, he said lightly, if you don't think too hard. He twisted the ship sideways, fitting through a gap so narrow the shields sparked violently. Alarms blared louder. The dreadnought's internal defenses activated, twin cannons locking on them from both sides. Timothy smirked. Predictable. He yanked the controls up, sending the ship flipping into a vertical climb through the trench. Blaster fire roared beneath them like thunder. Adelina clutched her seat, unable to look away. You're insane, she whispered. He didn't deny it this time. He punched the throttle. They blasted out of the trench, skimming across the dreadnought's surface. Sparks trailed behind them like a comet's tail. The dreadnought's command cannons charged for a full-power barrage. Adelina felt panic claw up her throat. We can't outrun that, not on this ship. Timothy's expression softened, not in fear but in something else, something she hadn't seen before. Resolve. Who said anything about outrunning it? He murmured. He angled the yacht downward, streaking under the dreadnought's belly. A glowing conduit pulsed beneath the armor, bright, volatile, unstable. Adelina gasped. The hyperreactor spine, Timothy, no. Yes, Timothy. I always wanted to try this. He fired 2 quick shots, precise, surgical. The dreadnought's shields flickered. Then Timothy slammed the yacht's nose down, skidding them along the armored surface. The impact was bone-rattling. Sparks exploded. Warning lights flashed across the cockpit. "Come on, princess," he whispered to the ship. "Hold together." A final shot struck the exposed conduit. A tremor rippled through the dreadnought. A low, building roar followed. Adelina's eyes widened. "Timothy, it's going to blow." "Oh, yes, it is." He yanked the ship upward. The dreadnought's core overloaded in a slow, catastrophic bloom of blue fire. The explosion expanded in all directions, devouring hull sections like paper. Timothy spun them into a narrow escape trajectory, the blast wave inches behind them. The yacht's engines screamed. The hull groaned. Panels shook violently. Adelina held Mia tight, whispering prayers she hadn't spoken in years. "Come on," Timothy said through gritted teeth. "Come on." Light swallowed the viewport. The dreadnought erupted in a superheated wave of blue-white energy. Timothy plunged the yacht through the debris cloud, cutting upward sharply. Metal fragments scraped their shields. The heat scorched their hull, but the ship held. They burst free into open space, trailing smoke, alarms, and adrenaline. Silence. Real silence. Adelina sagged forward, trembling. Mia stirred in her arms but didn't wake. Timothy exhaled and leaned back, running a hand through his messy hair. "Well," he said, "that was educational." Adelina stared at him, then without meaning to laughed. A breathless, incredulous, half-hysterical laugh. Timothy raised an eyebrow. "Should I be concerned or flattered?" "You," she swallowed hard. "You just destroyed a dreadnought." He shrugged. "It had bad manners. And you did it without dying." "See, always a bonus." Her laughter faded into something softer, something dangerous. "Timothy," she said quietly, "you saved us." He looked at her, and for once there was no smirk. No joke, no arrogance, just truth. "You too give me something worth saving." Her breath caught. She didn't look away. Neither did he. Before either could speak, the ship jolted. A soft tremor, nothing like the violence of battle. The systems flickered. The yacht was dying. Timothy glanced at the console. "Well, that's unfortunate. We need a place to land before we start leaking atmosphere." Adelina moved beside him. "Where?" He zoomed the star map. A quiet system glowed faintly in the distant quadrant, lush, green, remote, untouched. "That one," she said before he even finished scanning. "It's uninhabited, safe. Mia could rest." Timothy smiled, something warm and strangely fragile in it. "Then let's go home." He set the coordinates. The engines flared weakly, the stars stretched, and the yacht jumped into hyperspace, limping, sparking, but alive. Adelina settled into the co-pilot's seat, Mia curled in her arms. She felt Timothy's presence beside her, not overwhelming, not chaotic, just steady. For the first time since her escape, she allowed herself to breathe without fear. The damaged yacht broke from hyperspace with a shudder, drifting toward the quiet green world below. Clouds wrapped its surface in soft white spirals, untouched by war or empire. For the first time in months, the darkness of pursuit did not follow them. Timothy eased the failing ship through the atmosphere. The controls rattled beneath his hands, but his expression was unusually calm, focused, almost peaceful. Beside him, Adelina held Mia as the child slept deeply, exhaustion finally claiming her. The yacht landed in a meadow of tall silvergrass, steam hissing from its ruptured panels. The engines powered down with a long, tired sigh, like a beast finally allowed to rest. Silence fell, real silence. Adelina stepped out first, Mia still in her arms. Cool wind brushed her skin. The air smelled of rain and unknown flowers. For the first time since her exile began, she didn't feel hunted. She felt weightless. Timothy hopped down beside her, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the horizon. "It's beautiful," Adelina whispered. Timothy nodded. "It'll do. At least until the next disaster." She turned to him, the wind catching strands of her pink hair. "Do you think they'll find us?" He shook his head. "Not for a long time, and by then I'll be ready for them." There was no arrogance in the words. No bravado, just quiet certainty. Adelina exhaled, relief warming her chest in a way she hadn't expected. She looked down at Mia's peaceful face, then back at Timothy, who was staring at the horizon with an expression she couldn't decipher. "Timothy," she said softly. He glanced at her. "You saved us, all of us." Timothy scratched his neck, gaze sliding away. Well, you know, I had a strong incentive not to let you die. Very inconvenient paperwork. Adelina stepped closer. Thank you, she murmured. For the first time, he didn't deflect with a joke. He simply nodded. A breeze swept through the meadow. Mia shifted in Adelina's arms. Timothy's gaze softened again, just a fraction, but enough for Adelina to see the truth behind it. He wasn't just protecting them. He was choosing them. They stood there for a long, quiet moment, two fugitives, a sleeping child, and a world that didn't yet know their names. Finally, Timothy stretched his arms above his head. All right, new challenge. Adelina groaned. Timothy, not here. Relax, he said, grinning. This one's simple. He looked at her, really looked at her. No running, not tonight. Her breath caught.